Okay, so this is Ellie in the backyard after being at my house for about an hour. And I just kind of give this video of a good example
She's a
of what
brave
Ellie looks like when
girl.
she's
She's a
overwhelmed.
brave
So a lot of
girl.
dogs can look very
She's a
different when they're
brave
overwhelmed.
girl.
Some can shut down, some can get over
Ellie is a brave girl.
aroused and be appear hyper and excited. And then there can be kind of an in between. So Ellie here is very uncomfortable and very concerned. Um,
Cat.
Her ears are back, which sometimes just means kind of an appeasement, like, oh, happy, silly Ellie. But in this, paired with her ears back, her tail down, and kind of her jumpy body language and unease overall, we can see that she's kind of stressed out. The other thing is, she is, I don't want to say foaming at the mouth, but she has a lot of saliva around her jowls and they were just dripping out of her mouth the entire time she was sniffing. Um, and so that excess of saliva and paired with the rest of her body language, she's panting quite heavily. And while it's fairly warm outside, she wasn't
Crazy
doing anything
girl.
very active. So we can use all those
Good
tools to kind of
job.
give us an idea of how she feels. And
Let's
it's,
choose him then.
sorry,
You want
can't use my camera.
to
Um, and it's good signs that she's
What do you
sniffing
think,
and
baby?
exploring her new environment.
What do you think,
So in
baby?
this case, I wasn't very concerned, but it does give me information. So I
That's
wouldn't have her meet the
easier.
dogs right now, or I wouldn't
That's
have her
easier,
try to do
Ellie.
training right now. I wouldn't ask much of her,
To play with you, sweet
but
girl.
be not but because of the stress. However, since she's exploring, since she's semi responding to
So
people
many things.
and me, um, I'm not concerned for her like mental well being, if that makes
So
sense. I'm
good.
gonna let her kind of
You're
write it
so
out and
good, honey. You're
experience
such a
like
good
what are some
girl.
coping mechanisms that
You're doing
she can do
so
on her own. And she
good.
does fine. And within a few hours, she was great. So this is later that day. So in the evening, she settled down enough to meet some of the dogs. So here I have her meet Twiggy. This is my 7-year-old greyhound. She's great with dogs. She's very calm. She likes to play a lot, but she's a very calm presence. She's not too forward. She understands body language pretty well. So she kind of is my go-to dog when it comes to nervous dogs or new dogs in general. And Ellie's interested in her. She's sniffing her. Twiggy did her sniffing and is done. And Ellie's being very respectful. She isn't jumping all around her. She isn't getting. You can tell she's a little iffy, kind of confused. No.
Oh,
There she goes,
sweet
and that was a beautiful
girl.
example of a shake off. So she
Good
smelled her. She was
girl.
engaged.
You
She's
did
definitely
good. You
a
did
lot more
good,
relaxed than we
baby.
saw in that last video, but it's still a little stressful. So when she kind of walked away from sniffing and took that break, she kind of shook off that extra excitement, that extra stress. So it was beautiful. It was textbook, lovely, exactly how we want her to beat dogs. Okay, so here she is meeting my male, Brittany. Boom. He's an intact male. He just turned 1, so he's very young. And I'll start off by saying they did great. They interacted the way I would assume two very young dogs would interact. So that being said, we see a lot of rude behavior right there with Boom. He's doing a lot of posturing, a lot of pushing over her neck. It's just not appropriate for adult dogs to play that way. He's still learning, and it goes over fairly well with Ellie. She's just like, yeah, cool, dude, yeah, we can play, we can do this. So I'm not stepping in when he does those rude behaviors because everyone in by everyone, both of them are opting into play. None of them are showing signs of distress or wanting out or being picked on. So I let it go. And there's a few things here. So
What do
Ellie
you
does a
think,
lot of these
guys?
lip licks and a lot of these like nudging at the mouth.
Best friend?
Also, technically not very appropriate play for a dog, but
Anyway.
for puppies, again, they're gonna be a little goofier and they're gonna get away with a lot more
With a
rudeness.
big
So that
paw.
tells us two things. First of all, that's one of the biggest reasons we have our puppies play with adult dogs so that when they do these rude behaviors, they get corrected and they're shown how to play correctly. But the other side of it is these the it interacting with puppies like them and playing kind of goofy and silly isn't
Oh my God.
necessarily bad
So
as long as it
yeah.
doesn't escalate. So that means this rowdiness, if it keeps going and going and going and they don't take breaks, then that's when we'll step in. Not necessarily meaning that they're getting aggressive, but they just can't seem to figure out a point to stop. Then that's when we'll stop them.
Super
Um,
learning. There you go.
but all interactions with
Learning.
dogs are going to be learning experiences, and we want to set them up to be able to learn good things. So they did great, a little rude, a little goofy. I just kept those
That's a
play
good
sessions
start.
short, and they love each other. They're great friends. Okay, here she is meeting my daughter for the first time, and I thought this was the most precious video
Just getting
because she
something.
was so gentle with her. But Edie's a pretty calm kid, so about 20 minutes later, she left the room and then came back to get this microphone. And she likes to run and frolic and slide through my house. And I thought maybe that's when Ellie's going to get a little more excited and I can take a video of how we would deal with that. But you can see here Ellie is unfazed by the child's
Who's the goodies
excitement
girl, Ellie?
and just lets her
Who's the
go on her
goodies
way.
girl?
And I told her she was a goodies girl.
That's
Because
your
she
friendly
is.
cat. That's your friendly cat.
um, Now this is the very beginning of our
Yeah.
stay, so we might
Yeah,
start
this is
seeing
double.
more of her getting excited when the kids get excited and getting a little bit more pushy, and we'll kind of address that when that gets there. But as of now, I'm gonna reward her when she's making good choices, and we're just gonna keep watching and seeing what comes out. Okay, so this ended up being a pretty long training session, so I went ahead and kind of condensed it a little bit just to point out the main points. And so I turned the volume off because sometimes when we speed up the video, our voices sound crazy. But so I'm just working with her on place, and you can see I have an elevated dog bed, so it's very different than the mat that we were using. And since we don't have a specific thing that we want her to do place in, I'm gonna try a lot of different things, raised dog beds, normal dog beds, towels, and just kind of mix it up to kind of round out that behavior and make it a little more concrete. You can see that she kind of has a hard time popping onto this. She's not sure exactly what I'm asking her yet. So I kind of play around. I move it away from the couch to see if that helps. I move my body around to see if that helps. And she still has a hard time. So I just go ahead and lure her on. I'm off the screen right now, but I should fix that in a second, I think. Um, Here we go. So I will lure her on. So I give her a second every time I send her away and she comes back. I give her a second to make that choice. And if she can't, I just put my treat to her nose and use that to lure her onto the bed. So right there, she did it herself. That was the first time she got on herself. That was great. Extra treats. And then when I walked away, the other thing is that with the sound off that's important is when I walk away, I make sure to say, all done, to release her from the behavior. Okay, but here she is. I'm waiting it out. I'm not luring her yet. I'm giving her some time to figure it out, and she's struggling. So I went ahead and did a quick point instead of a full lure, and she did great. And she went back on perfectly. Oh, she's so smart. And it's kind of hard to tell the different steps. So if you want to see this video like not sped up, I can send you this one like as a whole. I might go ahead and do that anyway, but I'll send you this video as a whole so you can see it not sped up. But I just wanted to include it in this one to show you her kind of working through the process and not knowing at the beginning at all what I wanted, doing a little bit of luring, a little bit of waiting, combining the two, and her really getting it. And she's great. And she really likes to work. It's really fun for her. And it's fun for me to watch her get so excited when we get the treats out that, oh, I'm going to do something. What am I going to do? What should I learn? And you can kind of see those wheels turn in her head as we train. Okay. So I notice when I get treats out for Ellie, like I said, she gets so excited. And I love to see that drive to learn. It's going to really help us out once we can kind of harness that excitement. So I'm playing kind of a it's your choice game here. Um, some might use the beginning of this to teach a leave it, which we can do later. But right now, all I'm doing is kind of laying down the foundation of if I have treats in my hand, you going to get them isn't going to get you them. You pulling your head away is going to get them. So in this very first session, this is the very first time I tried this. Anytime she pulls her head away, I mark and treat. And you'll see there I didn't mark right away because she was still staring directly at my hand. So even though she wasn't physically engaged, she was still very mentally engaged with that hand full of treats. So I do this a few more times, and then later on in this compilation of videos, I add the next step. Okay, so here's a little bit of kind of trial and error with her mouthing. So I got her real riled up and let her mouth on me a little bit. And then I asked for enough. She, once I disengage, she does stop quite a bit. I try to re-pet her before she's ready. It's very clear that she was going to mouth me again, but I was trying to see where we were at. She definitely mouthed me again. I said it again. And she does disengage if I disengage. But she's still excited. She's still ready to play. So I went in here and had tried petting her in a different manner. And she did pretty good. So we're going to kind of play with things like that. Next time I do it, I'm going to have a toy near me and see if I can redirect her to the toy. But that's just kind of how I started seeing what's going to work. And disengaging does work. It's just she's still aroused. So can we get her to come down by herself, or can we redirect that arousal to a toy is kind of what we're going to be going for. Okay, so here I was setting up treats and she jumped up on the table and I ran and grabbed my phone to show you what I would do in the situation. But of course she doesn't jump on the table anymore, which is lovely, but not exactly what I wanted. So I'm just going to use this weird shot to explain. She jumped on the table. I asked for her off. She put her feet off pretty quickly, and then I gave her a treat. Now, to not get a pattern where she puts her feet on the table and then jumps down to get a treat, when she got back down, I waited a few seconds, and when she stayed down, I remarked again, yes, treat. And then I went about filling the puzzle toy that I was working on. So when I work on the off with the counter surfing, I want to do two things. I want to ask her for her off, and if she gives it to me, I want to reward her. Then I want to continuously rewarding her for staying off. At first, maybe it's a little bit more rapid, then a few more seconds between, and then minutes between, and then it's going to be kind of sporadic. I also like to reward her if I go to cook food and she comes up and sits. I reward her for that too. I'm not just waiting for her feet to be up to show me she can get down. I'm also saying, oh, great, you're not even getting up there in the first place. Here's some extra cookies. And this is a day-to-day behavior, so it doesn't have to happen all the time. I don't have to treat her every time that she's not jumping on the counter. But I do like to do it quite a bit at the beginning and sporadically throughout their whole lives. Even my older dogs, I'll give little cookies to if they come sit by my feet when I cook. Just because I want them to know I still appreciate you not taking food off my table. But she does really well. She catches on really quickly, and that's why this whole video, she's a lovely, lovely angel. Okay, so here's Ellie meeting Mags. Mags is a 1.5-year-old cattle dog who is very energetic. She moves a lot. She barks a lot. She brings a lot of energy to play sessions. I don't usually have her play with a lot of my young dogs just because they get over aroused very quickly. Cattle dogs, especially Mags, can be very intense. So Mags is lovely and she has never been aggressive towards a dog. So it's safe to do. It just is not very helpful for puppies. So I wanted to use this opportunity to see how Ellie would do if she could take breaks, if she could come down from the excitement that is Mags. And she does pretty well. They're doing a pretty intense chase game, but when Mags stops, Ellie also stops right there. That was beautiful. Mag grabbed toy, Ellie stopped, kind of turned away, kind of disengaged. She went back into play, and it was beautiful. So here I add Boom and Twiggy, just to show the dynamic shift when I add two really energetic dogs. So she's still really excited with Mags. Mags gets barky in her face. That's Mags' MO, especially when Mags is with Boom because they grew up together, so they're really close. So here you can see just essentially the controlled chaos. Everyone's being pretty appropriate. We're taking turns in the chase game. We're having some breaks. Right there was a good break. Mags went after Boom. Boom tried to take her toy. Ellie's just kind of there for the go around. So here's just kind of an example of a not dangerous situation for a young dog to be in. Everyone's safe and everyone's, you know, like participating in the play equally. However, this is not a situation that I want Ellie to be in for more than like 3 minutes tops. And then when we take a break, I want to have her back around the calm dogs that are settled. Like you can see though, it's fine. You know, they grab a toy. Mags takes a break there. It's nothing insane. It's just a lot. It's a lot for our young dogs. So she gets a few bursts of these kind of plays here and there, but we always want to kind of fall back on let's be around old dogs and let's settle and let's just stand and relax. But it was really interesting to see, so I decided to add that video for you. Okay, so here we're working on the same thing where I have treats in my hand. This time I'm not holding them out to her, but I have them in my hand. And instead of waiting for her to disengage, because we've done that part a lot, I'm now waiting for eye contact. So this is probably the 5th time we've worked on this. And I have been marking her for moving her head away from my hands. And you can see the drastic difference of her not even trying to get the food. But I am waiting for eye contact now. So there, right there. Yes. That's perfect. So right when she gave me eye contact, I marked and gave her a bunch of treats. So some of the time I'm going to send her out by throwing treats and asking her to find it, and then her coming back in and us starting over. And sometimes I won't toss a treat out and I'll just have us start over right away. So here she is. Yep, right there. She gave eye contact a lot quicker. And then we send it out and we're going to start over again. So this is just good for a couple things. This is some good impulse control. I have something she wants. She wants it now. What can we do to get it politely? This is also a good start of our foundations of how we're going to train together. Just because I have food in my hand doesn't mean you're going to get it immediately. When I have food in my hands, if dogs get super excited and super jazzed, I love it because they're really driven. But sometimes it's hard to do behaviors when they're so excited because of the food. So we're going to work on some calm behaviors around treats and some impulse control. Okay, so here we're working on the very, very beginning parts of recall. So it seems a little silly, but I'll kind of show you how we're going to progress this into something a little bit more concrete and useful. So all I'm doing right now is tossing a treat out, and then once she's done eating it, I say her name. As soon as she turns her body towards me, I mark. She comes all the way into me, and I treat her. So right here is actually a good example of I'm trying to rip up treats to get ready for the next session, and she's actually waiting really nicely for those, so I pop her a few before we do the next toss out. But here we go, toss out treat. Say her name. Yes. I mark when she's walking, and then she gets treated when she gets to me. So this is just the very beginning. Okay, so here's my tip to work on her recall outside. Essentially the same thing, but instead of tossing a treat, just letting her get distracted by her environment, and then doing 1 or 2 recalls and then calling it a day. Well, she was very excited that I was outside with treats. Even though I put them away in a pocket, she knew they were there. She was jumping, she was excited, she was all around me, sniffing, trying to get to them. So this is a good example of her being okay with me having treats and not meaning she's going to get them right now. So I shifted mindsets. And now what I'm practicing is not giving her treats. So I have them still, and I'm just waiting. And I'm just sitting out there, and I sped it up because I did it for a little while. And I'm just waiting for her to move on, go play, get distracted, do something else. And that's it. And when she does that, or even if she didn't do that, which I do think she gets a little bit relaxed and she does go off a little bit, when she does that, I simply put my chair up and I go inside. And we didn't get treats that time. Nothing bad happened, nothing negative happened. Um, but there's just no treats to be given. I can sometimes have food on me, and it's not always going to be for you. So I want her to be able to function with food around while still being excited and working for it. But I think she's doing really well.